Here's another video compiling a list of short videos released by Subboor Ahmad. I will show these with an appropriate analysis.
If your argument is scientific technology is a benchmark for whether you're right or wrong, then you'd have to agree the Nazis were correct.
Exactly. They were great scientists, I'll give them that.
No, but were they morally superior to the West?
No, of course not.
Okay,
well,
so your argument just fell apart. Because you said we are technologically in the West superior, and that was supposed to be an argument for the higher moral standard in the West. And according to your own logic, the Nazis, you should be in favor of them. Because they were one time superior in the world.
Let's address these issues. Firstly, is Subboor right when he says the Nazis were technologically superior to the Allies? The Nazis had fantasy-sounding ideas for weapons, most of which never reached the prototype phase. This is mainly in response to their inability to match the Allies in terms of numbers of soldiers, and that they knew their only hope was to achieve a technological superiority. Some of these weapons did make it into production, most notably the V-2 rocket. Overall, all these weapons achieved little practical success. So we've concluded that the Nazis weren't technologically superior to the Allies. Does morality have a role in this? Indeed it does. Their ideology forced large numbers of non-Aryan scientists to flee Nazi Germany. This included people like Albert Einstein and Hans Bethe, who helped the United States to develop the atom bomb. So the immorality of the Nazi regime did impair their technological ability. What about a modern perspective? Well, Daniel Hakikachu likes to mention Botswana. This country, however, has a consistent record of uninterrupted democratic elections and the lowest perceived corruption ranking in Africa. It has one of the world's fastest growing economies, a high gross national income per capita, and a high standard of living and the highest human development index of continental sub-Saharan Africa. This allows it to have one of the highest levels of scientific productivity per capita in sub-Saharan Africa. And of course there is Afghanistan, where immoral ideology severely limits education for women and alienates the country from foreign help in using technology to improve the lives of its citizens. So Subboor is totally wrong, as there is some association between morality and technological advancements. The next video starts with Subboor talking about penises. Since I'm sure we don't share his interest in that subject, I have removed that clip of the video.
Karl Popper, who's an atheist, he said Darwinian evolution is a pseudoscience because it's not falsifiable.
So we have another quote mine, something that seems to be characteristic of creationist videos, especially quote mines from philosophers rather than scientists. Let's look into what Karl Popper really says about evolution. This quote from Karl Popper originally came from the creationist Duane Gish. Popper was talking about natural selection, not the theory of evolution. He later admitted he was wrong, and more recent experiments demonstrate that the modern synthesis is a testable scientific theory. I will link this article in the description.
If you don't believe in Darwinian evolution, then you don't believe in dogs. Okay. You don't believe in seedless grapes.
Okay, that's actually a fallacy of division. So look, I have this book in front of me. If one thing in this book is true, does that mean the whole book is true?
No.
The idea that a Chihuahua and a pit bull have a common ancestor is a fallacy of division if you try to use that to prove Darwinian evolution.
Let's explain first what is a fallacy of division. It's an informal fallacy that occurs when one reasons that something that is true for a whole must also be true of all or some of its parts. Subboor is implying that the well-documented domestication of the dog does not suggest what he calls Darwinian evolution. Yet the emergence of all the dog breeds from an ancient wolf population demonstrates how over thousands of years great variations can occur in the genotypes and phenotypes of animals due to selection pressure. Therefore, it easily follows that much larger divergence can occur, causing speciation over much longer timescales. Natural selection uses the same principle as artificial selection, where phenotypes are selected, and this leads to a change in allele frequency. So this supports the modern synthesis.
Because if you imagine this is a book called Darwinian Evolution, and there is an observation in there called Chihuahua Pitbull Ancestry, that fact itself doesn't prove the entire book, because that fact can fit in line with a whole range of beliefs, including intelligent design, young earth creationism, Mendelian mutationism, Lamarckian evolution, evolution by self-organization, a whole bunch of paradigms. So you can't just take one random observation and say, therefore the whole is true.
I demonstrated the genetics of why dog evolution supports the modern synthesis. Subboor just spewed out words without any understanding or explanation as to how those mechanisms could account for the variations in dogs we see today.
Evolution by natural selection. There's no anomaly to it.
There's no anomaly to it? Are you telling me that within secular academia there's no anomalies to a particular scientific theory? If that's true, then Darwinian evolution is no longer science.
The modern synthesis combines natural selection, Mendelian genetics and population genetics. It's a well-supported theory with testable predictions and thus falsifiable. Of course, there are some discussions between academics on some issues, but that doesn't mean the whole theory is speculative. Subboor is overplaying the phrase of there being no anomaly.
Why is that?
Because every single scientific observation, every single scientific theory is based upon a bunch of observations. Those same observations can give rise to alternative theories. This is the philosophy of science. So if you say this particular theory has explained all the data...
He never said it explained all the data.
A philosopher of science like Karl Popper would say to you, well, you've just made Darwinian evolution into a pseudoscience.
No, a theory can legitimately explain all the current data. It can be challenged by new data, but if it explains all the current data, that does not make it a pseudoscience.
Open to contrary evidence.
No, but you just made a claim which explains all the data.
Again, he did not say that.
Right? Look, a theory that explains heterosexuality and homosexuality. Why some birds fly, why some birds don't fly. Why human beings are empathetic, why human beings are selfish. A theory that explains everything explains nothing, because it's not falsifiable.
I would be interested to know if there are any ways in which he thinks his religious beliefs could be falsifiable.
We live in a secular society and we need secular ideals to make sense of reality. So like I'm a Muslim, we have the story, the creation story, that the universe was created by God. Likewise, the atheists need a creation genesis story, and Darwinian evolution is their genesis story.
Sometimes I wonder what planet this guy's brain is from. Atheism existed long before the theory of evolution. There is no genesis story of atheism. The theory of evolution dealt a major blow to the design argument for theism.
If you came to a Muslim country and I taught you the Quranic origin of the universe, you would want to challenge that. If that's true, then you being in this secular society, you should also challenge the material genesis story of atheism.
Setting aside Subboor's utter confusion here, people can challenge the theory of evolution. They just need to provide evidence. The fact that no evidence has been presented which challenges the central tenets of evolution supports its case. Nobody is considered a blasphemer for challenging evolution, unlike in your case.
Science is a progression.
Science is not a progression. Who told you it's a progression?
Yeah, of course it is. It's very, very unlikely that something's going to come along which will flip a scientific law on its...
Science is a progression. New evidence is constantly being evaluated. If it doesn't fit within the current theory, then we examine our theories to see why and revise them if necessary. As evidence accumulates over time, the likelihood of a theory being disproven diminishes.
We had the Newtonian model of the universe, that time and space are fixed and gravity is a pulling force. And in the beginning of the 20th century, the Newtonian model of the universe had worked approximately for 200 years.
Yeah.
It worked then and it still works now. The discovery of Neptune was based on Newtonian laws of motion and gravitation.
Einstein came along and Niels Bohr came along with general relativity and quantum mechanics, and they smashed.
No, they did not. General relativity builds upon Newtonian mechanics. Relativity is more accurate in situations of stronger gravity.
Where would they be, like Newton, standing on the shoulders of giants? Where would Einstein be without Newton?
Where would Einstein be without Newton?
Yeah.
That's a side issue.
This phrase is hilarious as it demonstrates how clueless Subboor is. When he's no longer able to read out his speech and he's asked a question, he avoids it so he does not demonstrate his clear ignorance on this subject.
You believe that science leads to truth.
Yeah.
The problem with that belief is you can always have a new observation which can challenge your previous conclusion.
That's wonderful. I think that's fantastic.
So therefore science doesn't lead to truth.
There is no such thing as absolute truth. Truth is what purports closest to reality. New observations bring us closer to reality.
Oh, it leads to our best understanding.
Our best understanding of what? Reality?
Yeah, I want to interrupt a bit. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, isn't it? Like, we use science to put planes in the sky. It works.
We went to the moon based upon Newtonian mechanics. And
So you have just confirmed that science works and is therefore a good approximation of reality.
Newtonian mechanics assume time and space is fixed and gravity is a pulling force. Einstein came along with general relativity and showed time and space are not fixed, they're actually relative, and gravity is not a pulling force, it's actually a pushing force due to space-time curvature. So although Newton's laws, they helped us get to the moon, they worked, it wasn't true that the Newtonian model was actually the best representation of reality. So science works, it doesn't mean it's true.
I have addressed the issues relating to Newtonian mechanics and general relativity earlier in this video. If science works, then it is true in that it is an approximation to reality. Better science is a closer approximation to reality.
I'd still maintain my position that science is the best representation of
Okay, so that statement, science is the best representation of truth. That statement, can you empirically test that statement? Yes.
Yes, using the scientific method.
Yes, you can test for it. Just try doing a scientific experiment, one in which you make a prediction and then test that prediction.
If you manage to do that, you will win the Nobel Prize.
No, you won't, as this is what happens in schools and laboratories all over the world.
Promise you. Do you know why? Because that statement is a self-refuting statement. Because this statement cannot be tested. It is a metaphysical statement, meaning beyond science.
It is not beyond science, it is science. Please explain how your religion leads to any truth claim.
What you were saying was this: it breaks the laws of nature, miracle.
Yes.
Okay? The laws of nature are based upon what?
Observation.
And can you not get a new observation which can challenge your previous theories?
Well, you can, within reason, yeah.
Yeah.
But like,
Therefore,
a horse with wings falls outside
Therefore,
of that.
By definition, a miracle falls outside of natural laws. It can therefore not be tested or integrated into a scientific theory. This is in contrast with new observations which are within natural laws and therefore can be integrated into a scientific theory. You have to demonstrate that a flying horse is possible, or that there is a mechanism to split the moon within natural laws.